The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story, this is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. Now, with me tonight, we also have Adam back at the studio. Adam, how are you tonight?
We are good. Thank you so very much for having me back. Wasn't sure if I was let go. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're let go, then I'm let go. I guess that's how that works. So,
all right, I'll keep that in mind. I'll keep checking the schedule then.
You just keep seeing if I'm on the air every night, and that'll be a good start. So, Adam, did you check out the blue moon last night at all?
No, I did not, actually. I did not make it outside after the sun went down at all, now that I think about it. I did not.
Well, and fair enough. I mean, it's one of those things too that I see all over Facebook and everything, and then it's like, oh, I forgot to go out, but I did go last night during my nightly trip to Quick Trip to enlarge my body further. I went out there and I did stick out there for a while, both physically and metaphysically, looking at the moon, and it was pretty beautiful. It wasn't blue. It wasn't blue for me. Maybe it was blue for everyone else watching. I don't know, but it was still very beautiful. And if you do the stuff with, like, if you have crystals and stuff, it's a good time to put that stuff out there to charge. If you have a pendulum, put it out there to charge. So yeah, no, that was a really cool to see last night. You missed out, quite frankly.
Yeah, what I'm waiting on are the nice blood harvest moons that usually show up late September and October. Those are my favorite ones to actually check out. I will sit outside forever and just watch the moon go over.
That's very true too. Yeah, no, that'll be good as well. So, Adam, tonight I'm very excited. I'm very excited for our guest tonight. We have on with us Miranda Young, and she is a co-owner of the historic Sott County Jail, and that's in Huntsville, Tennessee. And I say that because we do have a Sott County in Minnesota. I don't want people to start trying to, go to Mystic Lake or something and try to find out where the jail is there. There are jails in Sott County, Minnesota as well. I don't know if they're historic or haunted, but it's worth noting that we're talking about Huntsville, Tennessee here. And then Miranda also does a web series called Ghost Biker Explorations, and we're going to talk about that as well. Let alone all that, Miranda's very creative. She is an artist. She's a professional photographer. There is a lot to talk about tonight, and I am very, very excited that she is joining us. Miranda, welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Hey, thanks, Greg. I've been so excited about coming on, and I appreciate you having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And for anyone who has questions or wants to comment tonight, please call in 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Do I have that correct, though, that you are co-owner of the jail?
Yes, I'm co-owner of the business, the True Crime Museum and the Paranormal Research Center here. We actually lease the building from the town of Huntsville.
And you're in the jail right now?
I am. I'm sitting here in the booking room of the historic Sott County Jail.
Wow. So you're in there, and it is a place that has a lot of activity. When you get in there, does stuff start up right away?
We have stuff happen day or night. It doesn't matter when. And, I don't know if it just starts up right when we come in here, but we often catch things on our security cameras. Actually, one of the videos we just released not too long ago was of our resident cat who does live here in the jail. Her name is Sally. And about 5:12 in the morning, one Thursday morning, something opened our gift shop door and put her inside. And the gift shop is in one of the former cells. And so it was more of a dorm style type cell that has a big metal door on it. I mean, she's a little, I think probably a little 12-pound cat. There's no way she could have opened this 20-pound door. It's pretty wild. Because when I came in that morning, she wasn't there to greet me at the door. And so I went in and I just happened to hear her meowing from the gift shop. So I pulled the security camera footage, and it was really a pretty incredible capture.
Wow, that is something. And I mean, you never know. I mean, cats get into everything, obviously. I mean, I have one, and he's a monster, but I mean, that's incredible. So what's the story with the jail? What's the background to it?
So the jail is interesting. It was built in 1904, and it was in operation until 2008. And then it sat vacant from 2008. They got a tourism grant in 2017, where the city, where Scott County ended up giving it to the town of Huntsville. They still really didn't know what they wanted to do with it. So they held on to it until we approached the jail in 2021 about opening it as a true crime museum and a paranormal research center. Now, we've had everything, a lot of our earliest inmates that were in here for moonshining and ridge running. And so we've had everything from that to an unsolved murder of one of our sheriffs, Sheriff Richard Ellis. He was killed ambush style right at the front door.
Oh, boy.
And he's one of our resident spirits who does stick around with both intelligent and residual activity.
Mm-hmm.
We've also had at least 7 lynchings that we know of. Mob mountain justice. Basically, an inmate would be put in here. Justice wouldn't move swift enough. So different people from the community, they would say sometimes 25, 50 people would mask up, come in, overtake the jailer and his family and the deputies that were here, and take those inmates out and lynch or execute them on different parts of the property. So we do know of 7 of those. And then just other various events that have been either involved with either some of our sheriffs or different folks who were in here. So sometimes it was kind of like Mayberry on Andy Griffith, where, you had a lot of family and community type activities here. The jailers and their family, they did live on site from 1904 up until the early 1970s. So, the jailer would be here. His wife would be the cook. Their family was raised in here. And then other times it was a very harsh, lawless building that, we've even had reports that it was active whenever the jail was in service, or active as far as paranormal activity.
Yeah.
And then after a while, we've heard that there were inmates who, Brushy Mountain Prison is one of the it would be one of the places that the inmates would be sent to. And so we've had reports that there were several inmates that actually requested to be sent on to Brushy because of some of the different activity that was going on in here, both physical and spiritual. And
I apologize. Did you say when the jail stopped being used? I missed that. I apologize.
2008.
2008. What prompted it from not being used any longer as a jail?
Basically, it is a very primitive looking building, very secure building at that. It's in the shape of a sandstone castle. And basically the fire marshal came in and he said that there were some violations, that it just wasn't. One of the big violations was there was no real good fire escape. And so they did add a fire escape after, in I believe 2005, but it still didn't appease the requirements that they needed. So in 2008, basically at 8:00 on a Friday evening, the fire marshal came in and had everyone round up the had deputies and dispatch round up the inmates and sent them to various locations until they got the new jail finished.
When you're talking about the lynchings, that's just raw history right there. That is something that as horrible as that is, and you see it in films and stuff, and you do hear about it other places. That's just raw history, and the fact that it's clearly has happened more than once there.
It has, and I do want to add they weren't race related or anything of that
Yeah.
nature. They were just people who, I mean, we are a small rural community here in East Tennessee, and when something would happen, it would not be uncommon for folks to enact their own justice. And so our last lynching that we have record of, the ones that we put out there, we have the death certificates, we have the newspaper articles. So we know that these were the ones that happened. We know that there were 7. We do believe that there were probably more, but there were instances when you would read in the papers of different events that happened here at the jail. They would talk about having reports that there were going to be mobs of people breaking in to take inmates out. This particular time, whenever Sheriff Richard Ellis was murdered at the front door, the jail had actually been on high alert that week, saying that that they were suspecting that there was a group that was going to break in. So whenever Sheriff Richard Ellis was shot at the front door, the deputies inside, they didn't even go to open the door immediately because they had been warned, regardless of what happens, don't open the door. Well, because of their hesitation, the assailant was able to sneak off into the night, causing this to be one of our unsolved murders here in the community.
Wow, that's incredible. So with that, when you all went to approach to take over and turn the jail into something else, how was that received? Was that easy, or was that difficult to try to get them on board?
It was actually surprisingly easy. I mean, there was a whole process to it. I had this is my hometown, and so I had the opportunity to be able to move back home. And I had known that the jail had been sitting vacant. And so before we actually approached the mayor, the mayor of the town of Huntsville was the one who had control of the building, actually had a plan. My business partner, Dr. Christy Sumner from Soul Sisters Paranormal, and we sat down, we formed a kind of a simple plan when we came in to see the jail. Then the mayor invited us back to meet with the town alderman and actually do a full-scale business plan. So we had a full month to sit down, take our simple plan that we had, and we actually made a 3-phase business plan. I went ahead and designed the logo as well as the merchandise that we have in the gift shop. We knew that we wanted the history to be the face of the business, but knew that the paranormal was going to actually be the economic driver. And so we wanted to present it in that way because there is so much history surrounding this building. We didn't really have to dig too deep just to find that history. And so so as soon as we had the meeting, the mayor was very open and very supportive, as well as the alderman. We did, in one instance with one of the aldermen, have to explain a little bit more about the paranormal side of things. Being here in East Tennessee, in a very rural community, it's not something that is as open in some areas.
Sure. Yep.
But we, at this point in time, we've been open for it'll be 2 years on September 4th. And so we've had over 125 teams here in the community. They love following the teams that come in and investigate. And so we really put it out there when the teams come, and they were, it's kind of hard to believe that, we're sitting here and that it's been as successful as it's been.
It is it's crazy that it is coming up on the anniversary on Monday. Ernie Pack says that he loves the Scott County Jail swag. You guys have great looking merchandise. We have just a couple minutes before we go to break. Was there a lot of work that you needed to do to the interior of the jail to get it up and running for having people in?
As far as doing the actual work on the jail, they had gotten a $75,000 tourism grant back in 2017. So of course that was 5 years prior to when we came in. They had come in, they painted, fixed some of the lead paint issues, and added a heating and cooling system and some new windows. Now, of course, as far as the true crime museum, now behind me, the board that's back here, some of these things, the board, and then of course the dispatch center here, that was all here whenever we came in. But as far as setting up the actual museum part, we had a whole lot of work that we had to do at that point, as well as, some of the cleaning and such when we did. I think we were in here about 3 months doing work every single day and night, really with the building, but then also with the spirits. Since it hadn't really been investigated, we did a lot of that as we were leading up to our grand opening.
Well, and that's interesting. Do you, when you go into a place like that, I mean, if you do this either for an investigation or if you do this for opening a place, are you walking through that with spirit? Are you explaining what's going on and try to get them to understand what is happening here?
I am. So I first investigated the building in 2014, so I knew it was active.
Yeah.
But when I came in, we spent a lot of time sitting down, explaining what we were doing, who we are, and what the intentions were, and then really just trying to get to know the spirits. I mean, at this point, we were able to really figure out, certain areas where music is good, the type of music they like. We even have certain spirits when they communicate certain ways, either through the dowsing rods or through different spirit boxes and that sort of thing. We've got to the point we know who we're talking to because they have a certain way of communicating. And I throw that back to the time that we spent on the front end. I would say it was probably really 2 months before we did actual investigations, because we were sitting there really just having communication and not doing a lot of investigation, but just letting them know about us and trying to learn about them.
Fantastic. Let's do this. Let's take our first break. We have Miranda Young with us. We are talking about the historic Scott County Jail in Huntsville, Tennessee. If you have any questions, send them through. We are willing to take them, and we're going to talk about the actual spirits that are in the jail. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. And welcome back to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. I just want to let everyone know that Wednesday, September 6th, please join us at Billy's Bar and Grill in Anoka, Minnesota for Ghost Stories and Beyond. We do this every month, and this month we're going to have a special guest. Her name is Witch Jody, and she's from Midwest Witchery and Healing, which is located in Stillwater, Minnesota. We're going to be talking about all things about being a witch and what it takes. And she is one of the few people that I know, well, to be honest, she's the only person that I know who is an actual witch from Salem. So that's going to be a very interesting conversation, and really looking forward to that. So that's going to be next week at Billy's Bar and Grill in Anoka, 6:30 p.m., $10 to get in, but it's also half price burger night. So what more could you possibly want? We have Miranda Young with us. We're talking about the historic Scott County Jail in Huntsville, Tennessee. We're going to be talking about a lot more things because, Miranda, you're a very creative person. We're going to be talking about ghost bikers, explorations. There's so much to talk about. I have a feeling creativity drives you.
It really does. My background, I spent 21 years in the corporate world as a marketing executive and started on the creative side. Yep. So anytime I can do anything, creative outlet, that's my passion. And so, I draw the locations that I visit or that I highlight on my series. And that's actually how I fund my series, is through my illustrations and my merchandise, that sort of thing. So, and of course the web series, it is self-produced, self-funded. So, very, very creative. And I feel like I always have to have that. And it does kind of spill over into my investigation. I try to find creative ways to communicate whenever we're doing the investigations.
So did you work at ad agencies? Were you like an art director, or what were you doing? If you don't mind me asking.
No, I don't mind at all. I've worked at several different. I actually didn't go the agency route. I went the corporate route. And so that way, rather than having a bunch of cool creative projects, I was able to kind of focus a little more.
Yeah.
I've worked in, the insurance agency with Blue Cross, and then I've worked in the school photography industry with Olin Mills. I was their creative director, which for many, many years, which ironically, the business ended up going to Life Touch there in Minnesota.
Yep.
And then transitioned on to APS, where I became their marketing director, and so did the analytical side as well as the creative side.
And I have an interest because I went the agency route. And so I worked at such agency as Fallon Worldwide. I worked at Carmichael Lynch for a number of years, but I also did corporate as well. I worked at Best Buy for a number of years as well. And I didn't do the creative. I did production. So I was a post-production producer. I was a producer, an agency producer. So there was, it's just interesting. I always love running into people who've worked the agency and that we survived. I think that's even the bigger thing. And what I find also really funny about that too is the idea that, at least for me, maybe not for you, but when you join an agency, you generally never quit on your own. They normally put you out.
And it's interesting because because I went to school near Nashville, there in Murfreesboro, and I knew right at that point in time when I was graduating, because I went with I majored in journalism and advertising, and did a double minor in art and psychology, and I knew I wanted to go that creative route. And I thought I wanted to go that agency route because, the big three cities there with, I believe it was they're in Minnesota, New York, and Chicago, I believe at the time when I graduated. I really wanted to hit one of the big agencies, but then ended up starting smaller and going corporate. And the more I did, I really liked the opportunity to get in and really know rather than getting to do the fun and broad scope of the creative side. I felt like I really got to kind of drill down and get to really get invested in my product, I guess.
Absolutely. We are talking with Miranda Young. We're talking tonight about the historic Scott County Jail in Huntsville, Tennessee. So folks in Minnesota listening, don't go to Scott County and trying to find this jail. You're not going to find it. But there has to be something in Minnesota that's somewhat of an equivalent. But we got a caller that did not want to go on the air. And the message that they wanted to pass along to you was if they want to know if the jail museum items might have brought in other ghosts than the ones that were actually there.
That's a good question, and thank you, caller. I've found that, it's always a possibility because we have so many artifacts in here, and in fact, we found contraband and artifacts that was in here, when the jail was in use. I do believe that there is the possibility because we do have uniforms, we do have newspaper articles. One of the things that's been very interesting, the spirits that are here are not only intelligent, but they're very aware of things that are going on. And so we find that there are certain newspaper articles that we have throughout in the true crime area of the museum that those newspaper articles tend to trigger some activity. Sometimes they want you to read the articles and you'll get words on your spirit box before you read them, which is interesting. There's also one area that if we're talking about a specific lady that's in the article, we have gotten some really interesting disembodied voices that have said, I knew her, or, different things that kind of happen when you look at those articles. So I do believe that some of the artifacts and some of the articles may not necessarily have brought in activity that wasn't here, but at least triggered and brought about different types of activity within the jail.
That's really interesting. I also wonder too, and just as kind of a general sort of spirit question, and I've wondered this for so long that, I think there's a lot of people who think when we're talking spirits being in a location like the jail, that they're like in a room like anyone would be in the jail or whatever. But I believe that it's very possible that if you have 5 spirits in a room, that it's very possible that they cannot see each other, or it might be on a different sort of plane of existence, so to speak. Have you thought
Yeah.
about that at all?
We've had some different instances that we have spirits that have interacted together that have been from different time frames,
Mhm.
but we also tend to have more that they tend to act on a one-off sort of thing where, like you said, maybe they're not aware of what's going on. But one example that was kind of interesting, we did catch on our security cameras after, we do always have somebody on site. We're on site but out of sight. And so after a team had investigated, the person who's working, they usually tend to kind of get things ready for the person that's coming in for the day shift.
Mhm.
And so I was working that night, came out of the room, heard somebody humming on the stairs. And it really kind of startled me when it happened, as it was this deep, rich male voice. Well, after I went back into the gift shop to get my stuff to leave, um, I grabbed my things. I called my business partner and I said, "Hey, when you go in tomorrow, look on the camera at this time and see if we caught that hum." Well, we didn't catch the hum, but we did catch 2 voices on the security camera, and one said, "There she is," and the other says, "Not so loud next time," whenever I walked into the room. So I do believe that those 2 spirits, one was obviously talking about me coming in, the other was telling whoever it was that was humming on the stairs not to be so loud. So I do believe that those 2 were at least aware of this third entity that was over on the stairs.
And you sent that to me. It's and we could play the audio for it. I don't know if it translates super well onto radio, but we can certainly play it. I actually lifted the volume of it, but I mean, if you're able to hear it like with headphones and stuff, it to me it's very much exactly what you said. Should we just play it anyway and just see if people can pick up on this? Is the EVP that Miranda just talked about. So that's the thing about EVPs. You have to really listen to them in the right space. But when I listen to them, I totally agree with you. That's what I heard too.
Yeah, and it was interesting because that was the first night that we actually had a team in there.
Oh, wow.
And so so it was our first team investigation that was here, and other than when Chris and I were doing investigations. And so I do believe that I think the humming is something we capture quite often. But I believe whoever was humming up on the stairs was not aware that I was there or that I could hear them.
So I want to bring in Adam here real fast because I'm going to put you both on the spot here, because in the first segment, I heard something that was I thought it was moaning actually, but it sounded like while you were talking that there'd be some other sound that was happening, and you weren't moving your microphone or anything. And Adam, did you hear that at all in the first segment?
I thought it was Linus moaning by your door.
No, but you're right. It sounded like moaning, didn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was Linus like wanting daddy's attention. So
Oh, wow.
I didn't really think anything of it. But yeah, I can hear that with the cans on.
Before you all think I'm a creep, Linus is my cat. But no, I heard that too, and I was just like, am I hearing things? And then when you bring up the humming, it's like, I can't say with any sort of impunity that that's what that is, but I was hearing stuff and I'm not hearing it now.
And that's a common thing. I've had stuff because we'll do a podcast, or we do a podcast here from the jail called the Jailhouse Informant. And ever since I moved back, I've been doing my podcast here on Thursday nights. And it's not uncommon. People will sometimes see something walk past in behind. Other times they've heard phantom audio. It's wild. And so I'll definitely have to go back and see if I hear that, because humming, sighing, coughing, moaning, that is definitely something that is a common capture here.
Yeah, let us know if what we're hearing, if you're just like, no, this is what this is, because you
Okay.
know it all well enough that, and I'm not trying to create a narrative that isn't there, but I was hearing it, and then when you brought up the humming, I'm like, I wonder, and that's why I'm glad you heard it as well, Adam. And my cat, I'm in a room that he can't get into at the moment. I'm sure he is outside the door, just like, why on earth am I not part of this radio show? But that was really interesting. That's good. I was just like, what on earth is going on here? And so maybe we caught something. I don't know. That'd be really cool if we did. And of course, you're just sitting over there like, yeah, that's kind of how we roll around here at the historic Scott County Jail in Huntsville, Tennessee. So
It's funny. It's funny because, it happens day or night. And of course, people will come in during the day tours and something will crash upstairs. Inevitably, it'll sound like somebody's fighting. And people are like, is there somebody up there? And it's like, no, we're alone. And it sounds like, or if you're upstairs, especially at night and especially around the top of the hour, anywhere from about 10 till 10 after, you'll hear some of the most incredible footsteps and charging up the stairs, and you'll think somebody's there. It's really kind of creepy when it happens because you'll acknowledge it and it will still continue to go as you acknowledge it. And it's just common day or night for that stuff to happen here.
And it's hard to know what's intelligent and what's residual sometimes, I'm sure, there, because
Yeah.
it's such an active location.
It is. It is. Several spirits. One that I had mentioned earlier, Sheriff Richard Ellis. We get a lot of residual as well as intelligent activity from him, but it is kind of challenging, especially like with the footsteps. We believe the footsteps on the third floor is the jailer making his rounds, and we believe that it hits at the time that it does because he wouldn't do it right at, say, 11 o'clock every night. He would sometimes stagger at 10 till, sometimes 10 after, so to come up and kind of catch if something was going on. So it'd be a little unexpected. Sometimes, even though that appears to be residual, there's times that you'll be having a conversation or you'll call out to someone to come check on an inmate in a certain area or, for med pass or what have you. And they'll intelligently respond with a residual response, if that makes sense.
Now, the sheriff was the one that was killed in the doorway.
Yes.
Do you feel that his spirit is at unrest, or do you not get anything like that at all from what you're picking up in the jail?
I don't believe it to be unrest. A lot of the spirits here, we've been able to get a lot of history validated through some of the responses that we've got from our spirit communication. And with Sheriff Ellis in particular, we believe, obviously there could be that aspect of trying to find out who his murderer was. But from responses that we've got, both from psychics, from our own investigating, we believe that he's so proud of his jail and he likes the work we've done. And by the way, he was taken out, he was a Baptist preacher. He was also, he ran under the stance. This happened in 1925. He ran under the stance that he was going to abolish moonshining and make Scott County as dry as the Sahara. Oh. So he put a target on his back.
Sure did.
And they had even warned him that he would not survive his term. Well, they made good on it. And so we do believe that a lot of it is he's kind of here helping us, keeping some of the more ornery spirits that are here in their place and sort of watching over the way things are, at least from the intelligence side of things.
Sure. And it probably is in some sense too, that he knew what he was getting into taking on the job, that it was, and if it's a case of trying to make it a dry county, whatever, it's he was doing his duty. He was doing what he firmly believed in.
Absolutely. And that's why too, and he was very, very tall. He was, from all accounts, from the pictures and stuff we have, we believe he was around 6'8". And one of the shadow figures that's captured here is between 6'8" and 7 feet and likes to hang out over by the drunk tanks. So it kind of makes sense that he would be over there by the drunk tanks, since that was something that was, that was his platform that he was running on. And, we don't, a lot of the spirits, we don't seem to feel that they're as much at unrest as that they just want to share their story and, help us with the history, or even sometimes just having conversations about everyday conversations about, what food they had to eat, what kind of music they liked. Certain spirits here tend to interact whenever we're not so much doing an interrogation style investigation, but rather cutting up with them, telling jokes, and that sort of thing. We tend to find that they're, doing that they're more responsive in certain areas of the jail when we do that.
Wow. Let's do this. Let's take another break. We are just getting into talking about the historic Scott County Jail in Huntsville, Tennessee. We're also going to talk about Ghost Biker Explorations, how to find it, how to watch it. It's a lot to talk about. If you have questions, please submit them to us as well. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. And try not to be too disappointed, as Friday and Monday, we're not going to have any new episodes of GhostBox Radio as we are closed for the holiday weekend. So I know that some of you will be very upset about that, I'm sure. I'm sure there's weeping in the audience as we speak. But just know that we'll be back on Tuesday, and our special guest is going to be Cindy Kaza as we talk about the new season of The Dead Files, which starts on the Travel Channel next Thursday, September 7th at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's really exciting. I'm looking forward to having her on, but we are having a fantastic conversation tonight with Miranda Young. We're talking about the historic Scott County Jail in Huntsville, Tennessee, and we are talking about her web series, Ghost Biker Explorations. And you said, Miranda, that you are now in the 6th season of this. Now, the 6th season about to start, right?
Yes. So each season drops in October every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and so there's typically four to 6 episodes each season.
How long is each episode?
So I tend to keep them a little bit shorter just to keep the attention span.
Yep.
So they range anywhere. The earlier episodes were around 20 to 30 minutes. The longest ones are 50 minutes, but they tend to be around between 30 to 45 minutes is the typical.
Now, just because we don't know what happens over at the jail over there. Was that a ghost cat that just came into shot, or is that a real cat? We don't know what's what anymore.
That is Sally, and she lives here at the jail.
So as someone who has also done a paranormal web series, I did a season of it back in 2015, 2016. It's a lot of work, and I think people don't understand how much work it is to get a season out every year, as well as everything else you have going on. Do you just not sleep, or you just don't think that's important, or how does all that work?
I don't sleep much. I tend to say I'll sleep when I'm dead, unless there's an annoying ghost hunter that wants to keep talking to me. It really is. And that's why I do the seasons the way that I do. I put a lot of thought into how I was going to do Ghost Biker. And I like to do a lot of research about the location. Plus, I'm a solo investigator, so I have to go through all of my evidence leading up for that episode.
Sure.
So I tend to investigate some of the lesser known locations. They're either brand new. If they're a commercial location, they're brand new, or there's something that may be regionally known to a specific area. And so I do a lot of research on the front end. I do the investigation, and then I have to go through all of my recordings and audio, video. And then, of course, sometimes I do it solo or completely solo. Other times I have a camera person with me. And so I have to go through that footage as well, then produce the episode and get it out there. So I like to take as much time as I can rather than just sporadically releasing an episode as it's done. Kind of have it a set time. It's always worked well. People know October is Ghost Biker season. And then I follow it up with a live Thursday night episode where I go in, because a lot of the people who watch My number one demographic they're bikers, and
Yep.
then also history buffs, and then paranormal being my third demographic. So I spend those Thursday nights really talking about the equipment, the techniques, the location, different things that I didn't want to highlight, or I mean not highlight, but spend time talking about
Right.
on the episode.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it works out good, and there's a huge buildup as things get close. And we're doing something a little bit different this season, which I'm really, really excited about. We're going to release the trailer here next week, which will kind of talk about the special thing we're going to be doing different this season.
That's great. And as when I'm doing it, and I'm very sure that's the same when you're doing it, it's as much as it's about doing the episode and everything, it's also about storytelling. And what I mean by
Yes.
that, it's not like creating a story or anything. Maybe you put the threads together, whatever else, but to your point, and I really love that you're like, there's certain things that are going to slow down the episode, but we're not going to forget it, because I think that's, from what I watch of people putting these sort of things together, is the number one thing that really grinds me, so to speak, is the fact that they don't get on with it. I mean,
Right.
it's hard. I understand that's not everyone's forte, but the thing is, it's like, you got to keep a pace going in video. You always have to keep a pace going.
Yes, and so I put a lot of thought and effort into not just the branding and everything with Ghost Biker, but the way I wanted my episodes to be. And so each episode's 3 parts, and so the first part is always about the travel and the story as to why I'm there. I always go into the history for at least 10 to 15 minutes, depending on what it is. Tell the history as to why I'm there, and some interesting facts and stuff about, because a lot of my show is about travel and tourism. And then the investigation, you're there sometimes you're just there a few hours or an hour. Other times you're there for 12 hours. And so if I have 8 cameras and 8 audio recorders sitting out for 12 hours, I've got a lot of footage to put together to tell a story. And so trying to continue to tell that story and make it flow. But again, like you said, get on with it, because to me, it's important to show the times that I don't get activity, just as important as it is showing the times that I do, because some people will put their episode out like, here's where I'm at. Here is my evidence that I found. And that's great.
Yep.
But the way the episode is filmed, you're in the investigation with me and you're following along with this story. So it can be a challenge to condense, 48, 64 hours worth of footage into a 20 to 40 minute video and still tell a cohesive story that makes sense, and put it out there to where it's still also entertaining.
Yeah, well, and I mean, that's and that's hard. It's so much harder than I think what people understand. And if you doing it for, going on to your 6th season, you're going to have an idea, and now you're changing it up, it sounds like, to a certain degree. I mean, it sounds very cool. And I like the idea too, that it's like you said, the viewer is into the right into the investigation, but it also sounds to me it's very intimate as well. It's an intimate sort of collaboration in the sense between you and the viewer.
It is because it's almost, it's as close to doing a live as a live, and that's why a lot of people like the lives, is because they're in there with you. And so that's how I model that type of investigation, of where I do address the camera and talk. Because one of the things that I found whenever you're doing these events and stuff, or even doing the videos, is there's not enough coverage of the history to know why you're there. So I always address it in that sense. And then as I'm, taking the person through the investigation, like I said, I mean, it is very raw, as far as the investigation part. And, for me, it just sort of worked doing it that way. It took me a while to find my formula, but once I found it, it just seemed to work.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's pretty incredible. Now with the episodes that you do, I mean, I mean, when I was doing the web series, I kind of focused away from doing anything dark, or just kind of the route that I felt everybody was going, both the TV shows and people doing their own their own investigations. I have a feeling that you're probably along the same lines with that.
I am. There are a couple darker episodes. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I like a dark story. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not talking demonic or anything like that, but I do like a dark story. But some of the best ones that I've done have been very interesting stories that one of them, in particular that comes to mind is the 1944 troop train accident. And it was important to share this story and to share this history because the history was really just memorialized on a little 8x8 sign that was on a pole. And so I shared the history. I did a slightly different investigating style. I did it during the day, and I had to use some more unconventional methods because it was an outside investigation. And then at the very end, it was important to me. I found the photos of these gentlemen that were on the troop train that wrecked, and share their picture and their name to really kind of remind people that what we're talking to in some instances was former people, or former humans.
Yeah.
And so that was something that was important to me. And I liked being able to, show that side of things rather than just going in and having the jump scares and the
Absolutely.
darker side. Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, how can people watch these episodes?
So you can go back and you can binge the last 5 seasons on the Ghost Biker Explorations Facebook page, the Ghost Biker Explorations YouTube channel, and www.ghostbikerexplorations.com. On the website, you'll be able to see my merchandise, my drawings, just really follow along with events and stuff going on. And then also on Instagram under Runaway Vixen.
That's pretty cool. And so obviously that's where we're going to find the trailer when it drops next week.
Yes, you will be able to see that. It's going to be blasted everywhere, but you will be able to see it on Facebook, YouTube, and on the website as well. And so those episodes, they will air live there at 9 p.m. Eastern time on all of those platforms.
I bet people are excited, right? People get excited. They talk about it. It gets a buzz. I mean, that has to be very fun. I mean, it just to know that people are enjoying your work, but also that you're giving them something that they're looking forward to as well.
It is. It's very humbling for one thing that
Yeah.
people will spend their time and watching what I do, that they care and that they're interested in that, and then that they even share it out. And then just the buildup. I know after I did the first season, people were like, "What? I got to wait another year?" And so I try to throw in live investigations and stuff, and that's why I do the live stream every week to to keep that content and stuff coming out. But I would love to put more episodes out during the year. It's hard because I try to do them. I try to do them the way I've done it has been successful, so I try to do it that way.
Well, and also there just isn't enough days in a year from all the stuff that you're doing. I mean, you need probably about 600 days for a year for all the stuff that you're working on. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, wow.
It's really changed from going to a location owner now and doing this. It has sort of affected the way that I do the investigations, even though I'm in a location and could essentially investigate every day,
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And before I forget, because we have about a minute and a half left, I also want to let everyone know we talked a lot about the historic Scott County Jail in Huntsville, Tennessee tonight. If you want to find out more about that, go to historicscottcojail.com. If I think I have that right.
Yes, and you can also, we did just expand to the historic village of Rugby, which is 20 miles from the jail. And so you can go to either the site that Greg mentioned, or just look up Historic Scott County Jail on Facebook, or just go to historyhighwayshaunts.com, and it's got links to both websites on that.
My God, you have a lot of stuff going on.
I do.
God. Are you human? I mean, how do you even do all of this? It's taken me for my web series, I got 4 of them out. I planned on 10. That was in 2015. I have a lot of unedited footage. I mean, this is, oh my gosh, I don't get it. All right. Well, with that being said, make sure that you check out those sites. Miranda, I want to have you back at some point. Let's talk more about the web series and stuff. And I hope you had a good time tonight.
I had a blast, Greg, and thank you to all the kind comments and everyone that's tuned in over there. I've been looking and I really appreciate that, and I'm glad everyone's excited about the new season that's coming up.
Absolutely, not one of them said hi to Greg, but that's okay. We're going to call it a week. We'll be back on Tuesday with Cindy Kaza. Everyone have a safe Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you Tuesday.
Bye, everyone.
Your Need to Know News headquarters, the Thom Hartmann